My name is Ben Jamison. I'm the associate minister here. And here at CSL, we have 7 core values that guide the way that we show up and practice our spirituality in the world. Those 7 are love, healing, oneness, abundance, spiritual growth, service, and diversity. And today we're focusing on service. And service here for us, in fact, all of the core values here for us are not just things we talk about on Sundays. They are things that we consciously and intentionally activate in the center and in our individual lives. And in relation to service, here at the center, we have community partners that we select every year, partners out in the community who we help to serve, not only as a center with tithing back to them, but also in helping to run food drives and volunteering for them when they need support and things of that nature. We are coming up to the point in the year where we look at our community partners and decide who they're going to be for the next year. So over the next 3 Sundays, you will have ballots on your chairs to vote on who CSL's community partners for the next year will be. Over the course of the next week, as part of this, yours is to think about, out in the community, what organizations inspire you? What are the community partners that you want to see CSL support, that you want to give back to in a new way? And make sure that over these next 3 weeks, starting next week and the 2 following, you fill out that ballot so that we as a community can engage in our core value of service to the community beyond these walls. In whatever way you show up to serve, whether it's here or with another organization, we are so grateful to be a place where service is honored and valued. Thank you so much for all that you do. Namaste. So we are at the 2nd Sunday in August. Where has the year gone, right? For those of you who feel like it's going too fast, we'll stretch it back out a little bit because there are 5 Sundays in August, so we'll make it last a little bit longer. But being at a new month, we have a new book of the month. And this month, that book is entitled For the Love of God, Handbook for the Spirit. This book is a collection of essays from a lot of different authors from different time periods, different perspectives, different backgrounds. And it really provides us a wonderful opportunity to dig a little bit deeper into our own spirituality. Because, you see, even though we all show up in the same room here studying the same ideas, we each have our own unique understanding and expression of what spirit is. And we can build and deepen that by getting ideas that are outside of those we might typically come across. So when we have essays of a lot of different people compiled together that we can look at, we might have the opportunity to find something we otherwise would not have come across that can deepen our practice and our understanding of who we are as spirit. A great spiritual teacher that I have received a lot of good from, John Rogers, says this. He says, have the wit to take what works and get rid of the rest. So that means that when we're looking at ideas that are outside of what we might ordinarily come across, if there is just 5%, if there's just 1 sentence in that entire essay that is meaningful to us, even if the rest of that whole essay seems like utter nonsense, have the wit to take that 1 sentence and apply it and change your life and let go of all the rest that doesn't work for you. The talk today is inspired by an essay written by a man named Howard Murfitt called God Lost and Regained. Anybody had that experience of losing your sense of spirit and then getting it back over a course of time? Yeah. For me personally, I have had 3 distinct experiences in my life of losing my sense of spirit and 2 where I have regained it. For those of you with an advanced degree in mathematics, you'll note that those numbers don't quite match. But that's a good thing. That's an okay thing. Everything is great, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But first, let's look at Howard's story and see what we can glean from his experience. Howard was born in the early 1900s in Australia and raised in a much more traditional Christian home. And he tells the story in the writing of when he was a young boy, he had gone out to collect eggs from the hen house, and there were 5 eggs. And he tried to manage 5 of them in his small hands, but dropped 1, and it broke. And he was planning on lying to his mom and saying that there were only 4 eggs there to begin with, and try to cover up the fact that he had broken 1. But he remembered that what he was learning about spirit at the time is that God is this separate deity outside and apart from himself who was constantly watching, ready to punish any transgression. And that understanding led him to say, maybe I should just tell the truth. Maybe I shouldn't lie to my mom. And he went and told the truth to his mom, and everything was fine. And right here is a really great example of this idea of taking what works and having the wit to get rid of the rest. For many of us, an idea of an external deity simply watching and waiting to punish does not work, right? But in Howard's experience, that was a great guidepost that said, you know what, stay in line with your integrity and your honesty, especially with those people you love. That's what worked about that idea, that guidepost that helped him to stay in line with his truth. So if we have the wit to take what works, we can extract that and get rid of the rest, get rid of the idea of a deity outside of ourselves that is waiting to judge us, and instead maybe put that idea in something like, there is a law of cause and effect that is constantly taking everything I say, think, feel, and do and putting it back in my own experience so I can create my life. And so anytime I show up without my integrity, in dishonesty, that energy is going to come back to me, and so I better do my best to make sure that in every situation, I'm showing up in honesty and integrity. It's the exact same core benefit, but two very different packages that it's wrapped in. So Howard took what worked from that philosophy and applied it to his life. As he began to learn and grow and travel and study, however, this idea of a deity outside of himself that was waiting to punish no longer worked. And so he had to let that go. Anybody else know that experience? The religion of origin that you grew up with maybe worked for you for a while or maybe never worked for you, but at some point there was a time when you had to consciously and intentionally let it go. That's similar to my first experience of losing my sense of spirit. I was raised in New Thought. I grew up at Unity World Headquarters in Kansas City, Missouri. Unity, of course, being the other main New Thought philosophy along with Centers for Spiritual Living. And oftentimes when I tell people that I grew up in New Thought, they'll say, oh my God, how wonderful that must have been to not have had to deal with all of the garbage from other religions and have to unlearn all of that. Well, friends, your curriculum is your curriculum no matter where you grew up. And while I did grow up in the New Thought teachings and loved being a youth running around this beautiful campus and learning about the Christ in me and the powers of spirit that expressed in me and my ability to be the presence of love and that God was who I am, while I loved all of that, I was surrounded by a traditional view that heard me say those ideas and responded with threats of hell and eternal damnation, because how in the world could I believe that I am the Christ? Touch your heart center for a second if you're willing to. And if you're willing to be bold, just proclaim, I am the Christ. I am the Christ. Certainly not the expression of the Christ that the historical person of Jesus who has been attributed with that, but the unique expression of that divinity that only I can bring, that only you can bring. Of course, saying that in that environment caused a lot of pain, caused a lot of struggle, caused a lot of anger and anguish. And so at the bright, wise, young age of 8, I decided it was time to let go of all of my spirituality, every single bit of it. I would never have anything to do with it ever again. It was in a place of anger, in a place of hurt, and in a place of judgment that I turned away from my spirituality. It took me 15 years to get it back. For Howard, it didn't take so long. He was traveling the world, learning and working, and ended up in India, where he came across the Hindu guru Sai Baba. And in Sai Baba found a new teacher that would help him to rediscover his spirituality in a way that he had never thought possible before. Now, there's an interesting thing that happens, or seems to happen, in the physical world when we have spiritual teachers who, on one hand, are proclaimed or claim to be ascended spiritual masters or avatars of spirit. You have one group that seems to say, yes, this is the truth of this person, and look at all of the wonderful, magnificent, miraculous things they have done. And then seemingly in the physical world, hand in hand, is the other camp that says, this person is a fraud, this person is an abuser. This is a really strong test of our ability to take what works and get rid of the rest. I don't have any insight into the truth of Sai Baba's expression as an avatar or not. I haven't really gone that deep into what his teaching was, but I do know from reading Howard's expression and experience that there was certainly good to be had. In fact, a new understanding of God that really fits quite well with what we believe here. Howard wrote this about his new expression of God that he learned, his new understanding that he learned through his time with his Hindu guru. He says, "In the broadest sense, we could say that God has taken all the forms that exist in the universe and is indeed in all of them. When we come to know our inner God, which is our true self, we will know that the divine is in everybody." Of course, we would add to that the divine is in and as everybody, but it's a very similar understanding that we have here about spirit, right? Yes, there is only one life. We can call it God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, but there is only this one life that is expressing as each and every one of us. It created all things. It is in all things. It is living us, and we are uniquely that divine expression. So here we have something that is very different from what we would typically believe, right? A Hindu faith and a Hindu guru teaching a very similar idea to what we have here. For me, when I regained my sense of spirit that first time, it was not a Hindu guru, but it was a teacher in Science of Mind. I lived walking distance from a Center for Spiritual Living and walked through the door because my life wasn't working. My life was not working at all, and I knew I needed to make a change. So out of desperation, the last thing on the list was to go back to my spirituality. Right? We tend to be driven to our spiritual practice by inspiration or desperation. Both work. One is a little easier than the other. But over the course of several years, in Science of Mind, I rediscovered a new sense of spirit, a new understanding of God similar to the one that Howard Murfitt found, and established a spiritual practice that helped to guide all of my life since then to this moment, and it has been a wonderful and amazing experience. So that was the first God lost and God regained for me. Intentionally leaving out of anger and judgment and taking 15 years to find my way back. The second happened about 4 years ago. My wife, Sherry, and I had left California and moved back to the Midwest, seeking a new experience of life, and I started a career in a technology company and was having a great time there, working with people and the interesting innovations in technology, and I actually had just gotten promoted in my job when Unity World Headquarters came calling. See, in my life in California, I did a lot of grant work with some nonprofits, and they wanted to expand their grant work. And so here I had this opportunity to combine my work life and my spiritual life, and thought, oh man, this is like a homecoming, right? I grew up here. I was running around these grounds as a kid. What an awesome way to step into life anew. And so even though I had just been promoted, I let go of that career and stepped into a new expression of my spirituality, and it was wonderful for a time. The thing about trying to get grants for a spiritual nonprofit is that there's not a lot of opportunity. And so after about a year, it was determined that there was no way to support a position in finding grant work, and that position was eliminated. So here I had been on this wonderful upswing in my spiritual life, combining everything, spirit and work, and I was promoting a book and had just had a plan to hire my own publicist and spend thousands and thousands of dollars to expand my work in the world, and it disappeared. And in that disappearing, my spiritual practice failed me. The sense that I had of spirit didn't make sense anymore. I couldn't pray. I tried to meditate and could not get into a meditative state. Rather than being angry and frustrated like I was as a youth, I was a little terrified. For so many years, this had been my identity, and I was stepping into my identity in a greater way, and suddenly it was gone and the practices weren't working anymore. Anybody know what that's like? When your sense of spirituality just kind of dissipates and is gone all of a sudden, and what in the world do you do with that? Took me about a year this time. Much better than 15, right? Just a year this time of sitting in the discomfort of not knowing how to relate to Spirit anymore, of feeling disconnected, of feeling uninspired, of my practices not working. I tried many different techniques of meditation until I found one that worked again, and different ways of praying until I found a new way to connect with that practice again. And over the course of about a year, I reconnected. It's interesting, though, when we look back at the quote from Howard, when he said, "When we come to know our inner God, which is our true self." You see, this idea of spirit lost and spirit regained is not at all about losing spirit. We can never lose spirit. It's all there is. It's what expresses in us and as us. The only thing that we're losing is ideas that we had about ourselves that don't work anymore, that have to be let go of so that we can step into a new and greater expression of ourselves as that divine life. We do this all the time. We have all, each and every one of us, have let go of ideas about ourselves that don't work so we can step into something greater over and over and over and over again. We just don't tend to put the same pressure on ourselves when it's more physical based than it is related to spirit. Think about it. At one time, you had the idea of yourself as somebody who could only crawl. And you let go of that idea to step into somebody who could walk. At one point, you believed yourself to be just a kid staying at home, and then you became somebody who went to elementary school. You let go of the elementary school kid to the middle school kid to the high school kid to the person who either went to college or started to work. Again and again and again, we have let go of these ideas, these limited ideas that we have about ourselves, to step into something greater. The difference is we don't see our physical life the same as our spiritual life. But unless somebody out there can come and point to me the line of demarcation that says on this side is spirit and on this side is physical, and here's where they cut off, then there is no separation between our physical life and our spiritual life. We just haven't quite looked at it that way. So when we come to this idea of spirit lost and spirit regained, if we don't have so much of our identity tied up in it, it can become a little less painful, a little less scary, a little more exciting, like letting go of the idea of ourselves as somebody who is too young to drive, to step into the person who has the license and the freedom to drive wherever you want, yes. There is no difference between the physical and the spiritual. It's just that we tie up so much more of our identity and our understanding of spirit. So that's 2. First one took me 15 years. The second one took me 1. I'm getting better with every time, right? So that's some good news, right? We've got some progress going there. Obviously, if there are 3 times I've lost my sense of spirit, that means the third one is right now, that I'm in the midst of it in this moment. But it's a really good thing, because remember, all that I have lost are old beliefs about myself and who I am as spirit that don't work for me anymore. And what's waiting for me is a new and greater understanding of myself as the presence and power of spirit to express in the world. That's a great thing. It also means that my work is working, right? Here's the thing. Anytime we set out to make any change in our lives in any way, shape, or form, you want to improve something physically, you want to learn something new, have some growth mentally, you want to let go of some struggle emotionally, anytime we set out to do any growth in any way, shape, or form, if we are intentional and purposeful about it, the universe is going to see that and say, all right, I'm with you. I got you. Now here's everything else that you have been holding on to that has prevented this growth up until now. And it's going to come up to the surface. So when we have an intention to know ourselves as spiritual beings, when we have the commitment to grow spiritually, what that means is that we are going to have ideas that used to work for us show up as not working anymore, and we get to have the grand opportunity to let go of them and step into something new. Of course, we can relate to this in a couple of different ways, right? We can see, wait a second, my ideas about what spirit is as me are changing. And yet I've been so tied up in these ideas as my identity that I don't want to let them go, so we can sit there and hold on to them and grip them as tightly as we can, even though we know that idea of ourself as spirit that we used to hold doesn't work for us anymore, and that's going to cause a lot of stress, right? It's going to cause a lot of tension, and eventually, if we are committed to our growth, that idea is going to be ripped from us in a more painful way than if we are willing to simply say, ooh, look, growth. This is exciting. Let me open my hand And whatever ideas I have about myself that are not working right now, let me just let those go, let them fall easily and gracefully, knowing that there is something new for me that is even better than I could possibly imagine. Think about it this way, friends. If spirit is all there is, if God is unlimited, an unlimited expression of love, of joy, of peace, of abundance, of grace, of glory, of all the good things that you could possibly imagine, of any magnificent quality that you could think of, and God, Spirit, the universe, is an unlimited existence and expression of that, and that is who you are, and that is what is living you, then there is throughout the continuity of your life, because this is not you, friends. This is the vehicle in which your consciousness is riding, but this is not you. You are the consciousness that moves this body. You are the consciousness that exists forever, that has always existed and always will exist, and are constantly and continually growing into a greater understanding of yourself as the fullness of Spirit. So there will be a limitless number of times in your unlimited expression of life where the ideas you had about yourself no longer work. And it's time to let them go, to step into a deeper understanding of Spirit as you, to a bigger practice, to a bigger life, to more love and more joy. So when it comes, friends, let's celebrate it. Let's celebrate it. Because that celebration will drive the growth, and you will come to a new understanding, like I have done many times before, and like I am doing in this moment, and like I will do again and again and again, and like you will all do again and again and again, to a new understanding of a greater expression of life than you've ever had before. That's the magnificent thing about understanding that God is expressing as you, that God is your true self. It means there's no limits to the joy in store. It means there's no end to the growth. It means that you are more magnificent than you can possibly imagine. So in the losing and the regaining of God, know that you really have not lost God. There is no possibility to do that. Never can Spirit be lost from you. It's just an old idea. It's just an old practice. It's an indication that you are growing magnificently. And so for all the ways that you are showing up in your new expression of Spirit, providing more light and more love than you ever have before, I honor you and celebrate you and enjoy the journey, friends, because it's an amazing journey that will never end. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. And so let's take a moment now to settle down into a combined spiritual practice of meditation, to check in, to touch into all of those aspects of our understanding of ourselves that are ready to be let go of because there is greater in store for us. And so in this moment, allow your eyes to close. Allow your feet to be comfortable on the floor, and let the music bring you into a centered space of love, of peace, of connection.
I breathe out, I breathe in, I am still, I go within. When I quiet my mind, in the stillness I find. Spirit meets me there, Spirit meets me there.
And so breathing into this moment, allowing the universe to breathe you, which it does so perfectly, because it is you. Simply let your focus be on your heart, knowing that in this moment, without changing anything, there is something in you that is ready to be put down. There is some idea about yourself that no longer serves you. It hasn't served you for a while now. but surrounded by the love of Spirit, surrounded by the love of this room, by the presence of life itself, you can simply set it down, let it go, and look instead to what is waiting to be born in you and as you when you finally do let go of that which does not work as you anymore. And so, filled with this love, filled with the knowledge that the universe is living you and is encouraging you, and that everything that you need to let go of any false idea about you is already yours, let's take a moment in the silence to set down those things which no longer work, and through intention, step into a greater self than we ever thought possible. In the silence. Taking a deep breath into that new self that is being born as you now, we activate and anchor that vision of greater life, greater love, greater spirit, knowing that the entire universe, that which creates planets and galaxies and keeps them in orbit, that which has made limitless forms of life on this planet and so many more beyond comprehension in an unlimited universe, that presence says, yes, beloved, the new you is now, and it is beautiful and magnificent, and the next new you will be more beautiful and magnificent forever and ever and ever. Breathe in the joy of that knowing. The gratitude of your unique expression of life. And in that gratitude, bring your attention and your awareness back into the room, back into your perfect, beautiful, magnificent, wonderful body that is serving you as it needs to in this moment for your greatest expression of life. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. And when you're ready, allow your eyes to open and be here now.
I breathe out, I breathe in, I am still, I go within. When I quiet my mind, in the stillness I find. Spirit leads me there, Spirit meets me there.
We like to close with an affirmation and a prayer. And you know, I looked at the affirmation card this morning. I didn't look at this before I worked on my talk. It was just done and out of mind. And then I did the talk and looked at the affirmation and thought, those two go together. Looks like somebody had a greater idea in mind than I did. So let's go ahead and share this affirmation together. Together, I let go of old beliefs and discover Spirit living as me. And so knowing that Spirit is living as me and riding on the beautiful prayer energy that Dr. Ferd brought into the house just a moment ago, we know that this one life that is whole, complete, and perfect is expressing as us now, always has been, and always will be. And in that perfect understanding of the divine mind that created everything, there is a perfect image of us, a perfect way of being for us, a perfect life for us that is already what we are living in this moment, even if we quite can't see it yet. And so for this week, I know that presence and power guides each and every one of us in letting go of that which doesn't work so that we can step into our spiritual nature in a more grand and magnificent way than we ever have before. And that new expression of life that we step into now is but a stepping stone on the way to even greater and greater understandings of ourselves as unlimited, unconditional love creating life itself. For all of this good, I give my thanks, and I unleash this word into that creative law that birthed the universe, knowing that it is done, and it is good and very good. And in gratitude, I allow it to be. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for joining us today at CSL. We will see you next week, 10:30 in the house or on Facebook Live. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching, and thanks for supporting CSL. If you'd like to know more about us, check us out on our website or social media. Blessings.